The Zeljava Air Force Base. This is a place that I have been waiting to go for years. It cost the Yugoslav government $6 billion in today's money, but there's a few caveats I want to get into before we really get into the video. First is going to be a lighting. A lot of this is really dark, and to illustrate how oppressive the darkness was, this is the flashlight that I used. It is a Streamlight Polytech Pro. It's a 600 lumen flashlight, 230 meter beam, supposedly. But just to demonstrate how oppressive the darkness was in the Zeljava Air Force Base, this is the light I was using. It lights up my entire garage just being pointed at the ceiling or the door. And a lot of this video is dark. I also wish I would have had this map and had translated it to just kind of help guide me where I was and sort of try to understand what I was looking at, because there was a lot of explosives that were set off in the airbase when the Yugoslav National Army was retreating. So it would have been kind of nice to at least be able to keep an eye out for certain things that I was looking at or in the rooms of. I also wish I would have had a bunch of little glow sticks so I could have set them down when I would leave a little tunnel or something like that. This map does leave a little bit to be desired, in the sense that it shows a lot of the main compartments, but it doesn't really show a lot of the small little tributaries and small little pathways in between some of this stuff. So keep that in mind as we go through this. In this first clip, this is where I believe I was. I'm fairly certain I went through the number 2 door. However, like I said, the map doesn't show all the little passageways. And I took a very small passageway into what, after translating and what I believe from where I was at, is the bomb and rocket warehouse, as well as a missile test station, and then came out to a second blast door and went into some other little corridor. So keep that in mind. The translation also isn't the best because Google Translate can only do so much, and I don't speak Croatian, so some of it's off. Some of it has question marks because whatever was translated didn't make sense, like oil warehouses, and I don't know. It didn't make sense, but it's close enough. So let's get into the video. If you get lucky enough to go to the Zeljava Air Force Base, wear boots, get a mask with actual filters. As you can see in the video, you can see the air, and who knows what chemicals were stored in here before they set off all these explosives in there. But then with the explosive residue, who knows what kind of horrible chemicals are in the air. So boots, mask with proper filters, not some cheapo blue mask that they make you wear on like buses and stuff because of the Rona. A real mask, a flashlight, a powerful flashlight, and not just a powerful flashlight, but extra batteries for that flashlight, and then a small secondary flashlight. I brought a Streamlight stylus, a little pen light, and it's not really enough to get you through, but my main flashlight, the batteries did die at some point, and considering how easily you could get, confused and turned around in here, and just how dark it is, you need something else to be able to change the lights. So something like a headlamp would be good, or just a spare light, Just keep it extra, and that's really going to help you out through here. According to my translations and the map, this is where they probably used to keep a lot of the munitions for the planes, a lot of the bombs for the bombers, and then I'm assuming where it said missile test site, I'm guessing that's where they would double check to make sure that fuses were working, or I don't know anything about missiles, but they probably weren't detonating them in there to test them. They were probably making sure that they were ready for combat, in their active mode, armed, ready to go kind of thing. So that's kind of what you're seeing in these 2 rooms. This is the secondary blast door that I went through, and this is the blast door that is the most common. This is the one that if you do a Google image search, you're gonna see this picture, people doing all sorts of cool photography tricks in front of it, but this is sort of that quintessential blast door when you look up a picture of Zeljava Air Force Base.
You okay? Okay.
I'm not sure what this portion was. It's not listed as anything in the map, but it was clearly used for something. Maybe it was, I don't know, like a barracks or sleeping quarters or something like that, or maybe even a guard tower or guard shack, considering that that door 2 is kind of the main door. If you were to come and try to assault this place, that might be sort of your main entrance, so I could see them having a little bit of extra guarding right here, but I'm not 100% sure what it was, and it wasn't listed on the map, but clearly it was something. I'm pretty sure that the highlighted sections in this is where I went next. I definitely think I went down the end of this tunnel where they did the aircraft maintenance, and then I went up to whatever that main artery is to go to door 1. But this is where the map kind of gets confusing, because I went through some small passageways, and as you can see there's the command chambers, but I didn't go back out into the main artery. But somehow I ended up in the power generation chamber thing, because I can tell that there's, generators and stuff in there. But I didn't go through the main hallway. So there's a bit of a gap in the map, but that's what you're about to see next. can see how dim this light looks when I'm in the tunnels, but then how bright it is when you're in these small areas. This had to have been one of the spots where they extracted oxygen from the surface or somewhat near the surface. I probably would have climbed it if I wasn't there by myself, because if one of those would have came out and I would have got hurt, I probably would have died there. That's me assuming what I think it was. This is what I'm thinking is sort of the end of that aircraft maintenance area. It's a really long tunnel that just kind of ends in nothing. So I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. These are definitely generators, and there's a big fuel tank in there. So somehow, without going through the main complexes, I ended up in the generator station, and this is what remains of it. I finally found entrance 1. I'm not gonna lie, there was a little bit of a relief once I finally saw daylight, but I had to still go explore the rest. In this last section, I started from door 3, went around, went into what I believe was the kerosene warehouse, and then went into the deepest part, which is that little 5-prong bridge out thing. We definitely get to see the kitchen. And then after that, I went back around and outdoor number 2. Unfortunately, I do think I did miss some spots in the Zeljava Air Base, which is unfortunate, but I really want to go back and finish the rest of the exploration. Here we can see an obvious plane-sized hole that used to exist in this doorway. So I'm assuming this is one of the intact blast doors that would allow a plane through, or it was sealed up after the fact. Either way, this is what I believe to be the third entrance. Luckily, there was a small little bypass around the door. So I believe this is the kerosene warehouse, or however it should be translated, where they probably stored the fuel, because these are all very large tanks that obviously held some sort of fluid that they pumped out, and they were all cut out or destroyed from the bottom so they couldn't be used again. I doubt it. It was either the fuel or the water, given how many tanks and how large they were. It was one of those two things. Whatever was in here was a very vital fluid to the base. I'm fairly certain that this is what would essentially be the air traffic control area of the base. On the map, I believe it is the airport command, is how it's translated. This is clearly the circle in the map that has all the big branches coming off of it. So essentially this is the deepest part of the base, and probably where they kept the most important stuff, because obviously if this was meant to withstand the impact of a nuclear weapon, you would want all of your most important things the deepest in the mountain. So that thing up there in the ceiling in the center definitely looks like some sort of air distribution thing. I don't know if it was, just cooling or just a way to spread the air out, but that seems to be what it was. And I don't know if it went into the individual channels or if it just kind of dumped it there in the center and it just flowed into those channels. But either way, that's what I think we're looking at there. I think this may have been the communications center based on what those things look like. Maybe they were sort of individual rooms, maybe a way to do communication without hearing all the other people and a bunch of background noise. That's kind of what I'm thinking based on the map and based on where this is, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure this is the final compressor chamber, given how utilitarian this place looks. I think it was used for something, and that might have been the main air compression device, the main air distribution system. This is where glow sticks would have come in handy because I wasn't quite sure which way I needed to go or which way I'd come from. Everything is dark, everything has this scorched look on the walls, and after looking at my watch, I was kind of reaching the time limit for when I told Mrs. Wandering Lens, like, hey, if I'm not out by this time, something went wrong. And I started to get a little bit freaked out here because I was a little turned around. I wasn't quite sure where to go. But luckily, I found my way out. This is clearly some sort of air intake and filtration device. So now I'm just walking through the main passageways, the passageways that the airplanes would actually go through. And as soon as I started hearing the sound of motorcycles, given that motorcycles can't go too deep into the Air Force Base, I kind of realized I was getting closer to the entrance that I had come from. I was getting closer to my way out. So believe it or not, this is now the most bizarre part of the entire trip. I walk out of the main door of entrance 2. I see our rental car with the hatch open, and I see a police van right next to the rental car. I'm already thinking that, Mrs. Wandering Lens is being shook down by the cops, something like that. But turns out the police van just showed up, and there's a cop driving it. The cop gets out, opens up the side door, and lets a bunch of tourists with cameras around their necks out and takes them on a personal tour of the Zeljava Air Force Base. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I spent a lot of time making this video. I had an absolute blast going and exploring this place, taping it, doing all this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.